Now, I've warned you countless times that Democrats in New York are giving us a precursor of what will happen nationally if Biden wins. Now, the most recent example comes from Letitia James, the most left-wing attorney general in New York State history. Today, with great fanfare and a full PR operation, she announced that she wasn't just investigating the NRA, she intended to dissolve it.
Altogether, there are 18 causes of action: improper wage reporting, improper income tax withholding, failure to make required excise tax reporting and payments. For these years of fraud and misconduct, we are seeking an order to dissolve the NRA in its entirety.
And nominated for Best Actress in an ongoing drama is, well, first thing you need to know, this has zero connection to some of the internal issues the NRA has had in management operations over the past few years. It has nothing to do with that. And it reminds me of how they targeted Eric Trump's foundation. Remember that? That raised like millions and millions of dollars for St. Jude's? It was totally political. Now, if Ms. James was really an unbiased official looking to stem abuse in a 501c3 organization, then why isn't she launching an investigation into the butchers of Planned Parenthood that prey on women in the inner city? I can tell you why. Planned Parenthood has pledged $45 million to elect Democrats this year, while the NRA, well, a big nothing. Well, if she really cared about rooting out corruption and fraud and waste, she has plenty of room to run in New York politics. I mean, come on, man, as Biden would say. The former top Democrat in New York State House was just given prison time for corruption.
Man who was once one of the most powerful politicians in New York State political history comes to grips with his fate, sentenced to 78 months in prison and $1 million fine for profiting off his office as Assembly Speaker.
Now, maybe she should find out the real reason Governor Cuomo abruptly disbanded his anti-corruption task force.
I believe with the credibility of this commission, you can go a long way towards restoring that public trust.
That 25-member panel was supposed to spend 18 months rooting out political corruption in New York State, but Cuomo shut down the commission in March. The New York Times reported last week that Cuomo's top aides repeatedly blocked anti-corruption investigators.
Yeah, nothing to see there at all. Now, and don't forget this, smart, aggressive lawyers can always come up with some rationale to sue or investigate you or, frankly, any organization. They have armies of lawyers paid for, in this case, by the taxpayers, and they can devote countless hours to drive up your litigation fees. That's how this racket works. And even if they have a lame case, they can still beat you by bankrupting you. And that's her goal, the New York State Attorney General, and that's her goal with the NRA. One doesn't need too active an imagination, though, to see how this sort of strategy could play out nationally in a Biden administration. Now, in that case, the DOJ will be stacked with prosecutors like Ms. James. Who needs to debate issues on the merits about guns or gun ownership when you just can take out the opposition, take them out of the game altogether? They'll go after pro-life groups, conservative think tanks, conservative radio shows, cable networks, even churches. Like efforts to defund the police or tear down historical monuments, this move against the NRA, it's a test run for broader efforts to frighten and intimidate people for exercising their God-given rights. Now, these are malicious Marxists, and they've had a lot of practice doing this. Remember, they've been burrowed into our schools and our universities for years. They've been protected by teachers' unions and compliant administrators. The Angle has warned you over and over again that they're not content to keep this on campus, though, or in certain liberal cities and enclaves. Like a nasty pathogen, it needs more hosts. It needs to go national. And they'll have the DOJ to sue you, the EPA to monitor you, and the IRS to audit you. They'll have unlimited resources and plenty of left-wing judges on state and even federal courts on their side. They'll defund the police and they'll disarm the public.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. You're going to take care of the gun problem with me. You're going to be the one who leads this effort. I'm counting on you.
So to gun owners out there who say, well, a Biden administration means they're going to come for my guns.
Bingo, you're right.
Oh my God. Now, throughout this tumultuous year of the pandemic and the riots, Democrats' implicit promise to the country is the following. If you help us defeat Trump, put Biden in office, things are just going to calm down. They'll go back to, basically normal. But as usual with frauds, that's a lie. A Biden presidency will cater to a coalition of radical interests of the Letitia James variety. That means a campaign of revenge on traditional America, just like New York is waging now on the NRA. And the only way to end the far left cycle of retribution and silencing is to beat them at the ballot box, and badly. Now, right now, if you don't like the way de Blasio is running New York City and you're living in New York, or the way Lori Lightfoot is running Chicago and you live in Chicago, well, you can pick up and move. But think about this. Under a Biden administration, there'll be no escape from politically motivated investigations. And your basic first, second, hell, all of your constitutional rights, they're all going to be in jeopardy. Your liberties will only be protected from these radical America-hating monsters if voters this November punish the Democrats and they make them pay for coming after our prosperity and, yes, our guns.
I want to say those fighting words for everyone within the sound of my voice to hear and to heed, and especially for you, Mr. Gore. From my cold, dead hands.
That never gets old. Now, can you imagine if a red state AG decided to go after the ACLU with the sole purpose of destroying the entire organization? The media would go absolutely bonkers. An attorney general who cares about the well-being of his or her state, what would that attorney general be doing? They'd be focusing on prosecuting the criminals and the organized mobs running wild in places like New York City. The thugs there are so brazen, they're attacking innocent people running bodegas and police officers who are just out doing their jobs. Things are so bad in New York, the governor is begging rich people to return.
Hey, you got to come back. When are you coming back? We'll go to dinner. I'll buy you a drink. Come over, I'll cook.
Yeah, that'll work. Do Ms. James and Governor Cuomo think that the thousands of people who are now listing their apartments for sale or rent are doing so because the NRA has too much power in the state? What a phony diversion. The fact is, none of these New York officials, just like none in the Biden camp, have a clue about how to make your life better. All they have to offer is more economic ruin, more crime, and endless charges of systemic racism. And this just goes to show you that the hope and change slogan of Obama's it looked cool on a poster, right? But it was always a lie. Apparently, he and Biden, they didn't change America at all. In fact, after they finished their 8 years, the country elected Trump. So by their logic, the country has gotten even worse. So for the next 4 years, they intend to put anyone who does not submit to their rule in detention. You're going to have less control over every aspect of your life, while the connected, woke crowd will have the power to do whatever it wants. Remember, rules for thee, but not for me. So it's time for the silent majority to be silent no more. There are more of you than you think. We don't have to live like this, in fear that our neighbors will report us for not wearing a mask on our own front lawn, or in fear that if we're defending our homes and our families, they'll make us the criminals, or in fear that our religious beliefs put targets on our backs, or in fear that the government will investigate us just because we oppose certain policies. Think of what the FBI, led by Jim Comey, did to President Trump and candidate Trump. They tried to cancel his entire presidency. Do not let them do this to America. And that's the angle.